Hey guys, today we have kind of a review, kind of a deep dive discussion between me and a first time guest on the channel. Now, we've already recorded this, just wanted to let you guys know, I've decided to cut this video in half because it took us like 3 hours to record, and I think that's a lot for one video. So this video here is just going to be about the heroes and aspect cards, and the second part, where we talk about the villains and modular sets, will be coming later in a second video. But let's go back to the actual recording. It's going to be a podcast style thing where we kind of just talk through all the stuff, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Not my usual presentation kind of style stuff, but no cameras, no fancy presentation. It's going to let me get a few extra videos out a bit easier for you guys. So I hope that's understandable. Agent Nick Fury here, talking about Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D., maybe kind of a review, maybe kind of a deeper look into some of the interesting mechanics and things, joined by somebody else on the channel for the first time.
Hi, this is Agent. Who am I? Agent Andy.
Which Andy? Are you Agent Andy C, L, F?
Andy N. Andy N. I am not the famed Andy R. This is Andy N. coming to you from Minnesota. First time on the channel. This is so fun.
Yeah, so I think it's about 1 p.m. here, and it's probably like 5 a.m. where you are.
It's 6 a.m. 6 a.m. Yeah, this is good. Got up nice and early and for our secret agent call to talk about Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. I'm so pumped.
That's right, we've got some intel to drop. I hear you have approximately 70 pages of notes, and I think we're starting with Maria Hill, is that right?
Yes, I have a bunch of notes, and starting with Nick and Maria and going over the heroes. Yeah, this is so fun. Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. I've been so excited to talk about this box and go through it and hear your thoughts because again, this is the first time for me on the channel, but I get to hear you talking with Nelson and Boom Guy and Andy R and all those people, and many times I'm in alignment with what you're saying versus maybe someone else, and I don't know if we'll be totally on the same page with this. I'm excited to go over Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. and hear your thoughts. I don't think either of us have heard each other's thoughts too much yet, so this will be fun.
Yeah, I've been pretty tight-lipped about it, so we should probably fight
Yeah.
into it soon. The only thing I want to say right off the bat is, for me, I found Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. to feel like a very experimental box.
Yes, I said the same thing. The word experimental is in my notes. There it is.
Ooh, nice.
Experimental. Not safe. They did not play it
Correct.
safe. Yes, good. Well, dang it, we're aligned already. Shoot. Okay. Well, let's go into it. Do you just want to jump straight into the heroes?
Yeah, let's go for it. Are we talking
Okay,
about Maria or
cool,
Nick
cool.
first?
Let's do Nick first, actually. Let's do Nick. So, okay,
Cool.
Nick Fury. I'm going to share some of my thoughts, and then I want to hear you bounce off of that and add and subtract and say what you want to say. So,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. Well, so Nick Fury, you always talk about the evolution of heroes and of villains, right? And
Yeah.
I know you love thinking of like the evolution of designs and sort of, I can see how they're trying something sort of new, but also like it's related to this hero and this hero. For Nick Fury, I felt like he was kind of like an evolution of two heroes. And do you want to guess maybe one or two of them?
I think I can guess one of them, and what sprang to mind as soon as you said that was Gambit.
Yes, exactly. Gambit
Perfect.
was one of them, and then the other one's Black Widow, just because of like the
Oh,
preparations
yeah.
and Shield and all that. Yeah, was there another one that has struck you as far as what you feel like he could be an evolution?
No, not a clue. I think about the forms, but I think his forms are very different to
Right.
every other character with forms that we've seen before.
That's so true. That's super different. Yeah, he has that assault form and covert form. Is that what it is? Or
Stealth.
yeah, stealth, of course. Yeah, he's got the covert surveillance card, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. He does not feel like a form flipping hero like almost any other form flipping hero. So for me, his evolution, yeah, is more so Black Widow because he's sort of doing a lot of the preparation things. So almost like half of his kit feels like responsive in that way. And even the way
Yeah.
his forms are feels sort of like you are trying to set up the right thing, but like when you're playing him early as like a new player, it's easy to be in the wrong form at the wrong time, like be like in stealth form, and then the villain like attacks, but it turns into a scheme. But then he attacks again, it turns into another scheme, and then you lose. It's so he feels a little bit like Black Widow in terms of having to really think about what you're doing going into the villain phase. But then Gambit, because of that ability from his assault suit, right?
Yeah, we can boost up the damage with by spending threat. It's a bit like Gambit when he spends the, I think they're called charge counters, and boosts the
Yes.
damage that way.
Yes, exactly. So I like that though. It feels even more like thoughtful or less aggressive than Gambit, but it's much more proactive than Black Widow, who's the most probably the most reactive hero in the game. You set up your stuff and then react to what the villain's doing. So yeah. So the thing I was gonna say was I think that you'll like him. And I want to hear your thoughts on this. I think you'll like him if you enjoy heroes who use counters because he doesn't use traditional counters as much, but he uses threat, right? He
Mhm.
accumulates threat on his suit, and man, do you have threat counters on his suit? Like, how many have you gotten up to? I don't even know.
I don't know. I think my playstyle is actually to spend them fairly aggressively. Like, if
Oh,
my stealth
nice.
form is no longer collecting tokens, I'm changing to assault and I'm spending them. But
Yes,
it might change if Maria Hill, the signature ally, is out because she generates mad counters,
she
mad
generates so
threat.
much. Yeah, it's like hard to use all the stuff that she gives you. Hard
Yeah,
hard to spend the money that's coming in when she's on the table. That's true. Yeah, when she's on the table, I feel like I can sometimes get up to like 10 or 12, but like you're right. It's interesting because you technically could hold on to them like Ironheart's progress tokens or something, but you're really incentivized usually to spend them pretty, aggressively, or even like need to, right, to like get what you need to do.
yeah,
So that's cool. So I think if you like counters, you'll enjoy him. Also, if you like having a lot of control cards, he has some very very powerful control cards, both encounter card cancels and damage cancels and threat cancels. And because of that new practice plan card, he can recur that. So he's got really crazy loops of being able to just basically shut down what the villain's doing.
yeah.
Especially if he's in stealth mode, the villain doesn't attack; he just schemes. And then the encounter card, if it gets canceled by the intelligence analysis, what is it?
Yep.
Is that what it's called? Um, then that's the villain phase done and dusted,
Yep.
and and then you just thwart the threat that came out, and that adds more counters onto his suit, and you keep going. So if you like that style of hyper control, you'll like him. If you like heroes who break the game with how, like, quote unquote, break the game with how they relate to like the villain activations, then you'll like him because of the way that his stealth suit makes the villain scheme instead of attacking. I think you'll also like him if you like heroes who ready again every turn because he readies every turn with his cape, i.e., his car.
Fury's
Um,
flying car. I love it so much.
yes. And I think you'll like him if you like heroes who can burst a lot of threat removal or a lot of damage. Like if you like bursty heroes who are like, okay, this turn I'm gonna sort of turn my guns and do this thing a lot, which is fun. So yeah, so I think a lot of really good reasons to like him. What about you? What do you think? Are there other reasons to like him or almost to not like him?
I think there are and stuff. So I just wanted to point out to any of our viewers is, the stealth form he kind of, will be in a fair amount of the time. It will depend on your playstyle and even player count and things, I think, has an effect on him, which is really interesting in general. But the enemy
Yes.
will scheme instead of attack you. That puts some threat on your suit. If you do a basic fall, it puts some threat on your suit. Maria Hill will throw all the threat in the world at your suit. And you generally spend it for damage, but you've also got, I don't think we touched on, his watch. He's got a wristwatch, and that generates a lot
Mm,
of resources in exchange for threat. So you've got different ways to spend the threat. If you spend the threat for extra damage on an attack like Spray Fire, which hits multiple targets potentially, instead of increasing, like a regular attack would be increased by 1 damage for a point of threat you're spending in assault form. An attack which hits 2 characters, it's increasing by 2 because you're hitting both characters with the bonus extra damage. So
yep.
what that leads me to kind of say is that I think if you enjoy tactical characters, where sort of the value of your special resource, like his spending the threat, that's his special resource, but you can spend it in different ways on different things. And if you like to think about that, I think that's like a really fun thing because I feel like in my head, the way I play him, I've got this sort of ideal loop of what form I want to be in at what point with what amount of threat. But depending on what the villain does, for the board state, what cards I've got in my hand, it plays out differently every single time. So I'm really having to think about it. It's not just like a set formula. I'm always trying to, optimize the, little things going on.
Right. No, I agree with all that. The way you're talking about it, I'm like, man, the hot take, but maybe the best part of the box is Nick Fury. Maybe.
I'm not
I'll
going to
just
say that's a hot take. As long as you're talking to me, I'm going to say that's a great take. Nick Fury is 100% my favorite part of the box. I love Nick Fury. He's got a flying car
awesome.
and he's very tactical, and he's got a lot of aspect card interaction. I think because his assault form boosts the damage from attacks. It can be a basic attack. It can be an attack event. He's got tech. He can do stuff like repurpose. He's got 40 stuff. When he forts, he puts threat on his suit, and justice kind of follows suit. And he's shield, and there's lots of shield stuff in justice. And then leadership can do a few different things, but I gotta shout out Maria Hill's sidekick. Dex, kind of crazy.
Yes, very good. This is why we don't do those sort of combative podcast episodes together, because we're too aligned on how we think about the game.
But I think this is good though
That's
because
awesome.
probably cover some little parts that we agree on, but I might not think to vocalize as much.
For
So I
sure,
like
for sure.
this.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
I'd
Okay,
say
well, so I don't know who wouldn't like him, except for the main thing I think that I've heard people not like is that whole break the game element. I've seen some complaints that he just shuts down a lot of villains if you play him correctly with stealth mode. And so I think that's really the main complaint about him, which could be a significant complaint for some people.
Well, let me pivot into the biggest downside I would see for him.
Yeah,
Maybe this would be fun to do like a least favorite thing and most
I
favorite thing
have
about each character or
most
something.
most interesting and worst card. Are yeah, I have those notes for sure.
I don't know if I can say worst card or best card because Boom Guy might. I think he's got copyright on me saying this to down to the card
Right,
for
right.
me, especially if you're not as used to managing him yet. But potentially at any point with bad encounter cards, if you're in stealth form, the villain schemes, then you get like your encounter card and the villain schemes again. It can in solo make the threat just, especially against certain villains with lower threat threshold, a bit dicey if you want to try and make use of stealth
Yes.
form. So he's a character that I think also because of the way concentrated fire works, which rewards you for like defeating enemies, more enemies in multiplayer. Spray fires maybe got better targets in multiplayer, that kind of thing. I feel like he just gains a little as soon as you hit 2-player and above. But I still think he's perfectly fun solo. But for me, the downside I think just is in solo because again, as soon as you hit multiplayer, you can't shut down everything the villain is doing because other things are happening around your control.
Right. I agree with that. And the one card that can really block that dynamic or help it is Secret Agent, right? Or no, not Secret. Yes, Secret Agent slash Eye Patch Camera. Both of those can remove threat from the main scheme or from
Yeah.
a scheme in the villain phase, which could make you able to survive a second
Yep.
uh, scheming. But and I would say that's like for me that's like his most interesting card is Secret Agent since it allows you to move threat from a scheme during the villain phase. I just really like that because it can be very powerful for like powering his economy, saving him from like the double scheme, like you said. But I also just really like defeating side schemes in the villain phase or like just bringing the main scheme lower is always something I've loved. Like Phantom Flip for Ghost Spider is one of my favorite cards in the game because of that. So that's kind of my most interesting card, I would say, is Secret Agent. Because it kind of helps defeat that dynamic too that you were saying.
Yeah, I do really like Secret Agent. I think I liked what you said before that he's quite a responsive, like a hero, kind of like Black Widow. You got the preparation, it's just setting up it in advance. For me, I think in terms of if people want like to like deck build for him and stuff, something that I think I would say is that a lot of his cards are like low impact, like very efficient. But if you have a problem in front of you right now, they're not necessarily going to clear that problem all the time.
Yes,
For the people
yes,
looking at my screen, I think the 6 cards I've got here, like Safe House, his shield, his eye patch camera, his watch, his intelligence analysis, secret agent. It's like half his kit. You play it and it's not going to immediately solve anything in front of you. And then you've got like his 14 card, Covert Surveillance. I love the card, but it only removes 2 threats. So you might end up needing a couple of cards in hand to clear a side scheme. Unless maybe your car is out, but as soon as you head into multiplayer, like you're not hitting big numbers to clear stuff necessarily, even if the cards you're playing are efficient. So for me, something I found in deck building is I don't want too much low impact stuff. I want stuff that can kind of solve problems, and a lot of what he already comes with is kind of more like the long game, the prepare in advance kind of thing.
yes, yes, absolutely. That's fun. Yeah, I'm looking at these all these cards, and those are like those are my favorite cards. Are all his like those like 6 cards, like you said, on Hall of Heroes, right?
Well,
Those are just fun.
yeah. I think the way I'd actually phrase like the eye patch camera and intelligence analysis, and then kind of curring them with practice plan, they're kind of like safety nets. I feel like, and I feel like he kind of
Yes.
needs those. But
Yeah.
I say
Yeah.
about my favorite card for him, and it's got to be the flying car because it's a flying car.
It is really good. The flying car. I remember that being. I don't remember who revealed it,
Me,
but you did, nice. Okay,
yeah,
so
I'm
as soon as it was
biased.
revealed, I remember being like, "That is awesome!" Like, not only is it a very powerful card, but it's also has such cool traits. You know, it's aerial, it's tech, the vehicle, and it just looks cool. Like it's like a freaking like red Corvette with and then like the background. I love that it's like that weird like comic booky, like where even is he, like he almost looks like he's on the pages of a comic book, not in an actual place, with like the pink and yellow. And I just it looks so stylish and like so like this is not a boring Nick Fury, you know. I don't know. It felt like such a good response to people who maybe like would have first been like, Nick Fury, really? You know, like the very tepid response when Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. was first announced.
Yeah,
I remember that was at Gen Con. The video I think was from Gen Con of 20, you know, whatever that was. But it was announced and there was just not like a bunch of shouts and excitement. And I think for some people it was just like, I don't know, this doesn't really excite me necessarily. I'm thinking of just Nick Fury walking around talking. And then I think that this is just like the perfect example of this. No, this guy's exciting. This guy's fun. He is just as much of a superhero as Black Widow, you know.
yeah.
And so yeah, fun. He's so fun and definitely I think yeah, my favorite part of the box. So any other thoughts on Nick?
Yeah, two things I want to say. First of all,
Yeah.
you're talking about how like exciting Nick is as a superhero. I just want to say thematically, I really like how stealth form works. I think that's
Yes.
perfect, and I like that his basic when he uses basic for his ability on his hero card is called Gather Intel, and the fact of like the idea of threat on your suit being kind of information you've gathered or like potential to sabotage and ambush, I think just is a really fun way to do it. But I also want to
Yep.
say, with Fury's flying car, I was talking to one of my friends about this. I said to them, I love how upset it is that I'm in a flying car, but I'm stealthed, right?
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
they said, oh, you're flying above them. Nobody ever looks up. but I said,
yeah.
but I said, you look at the art. The car has its headlights on. You know, it's bright lights. Uh,
It's a
and
red car.
they had an answer for that as well. The headlights come on in assault form.
Oh, there you go. They come on assault form. Nice. People just think it's a plane. They think it's a satellite. Yeah, that's hilarious. Driving a red Corvette through the skies in stealth form.
Yeah, yeah.
That's fun.
I think the last thing I will say about Nick Fury is I think I can already tell you he's going to be a hero I come back to quite often. And I'm not going to say
Yeah.
it's very hard to rank favorites in a game where there's so much good stuff, but he's definitely landed very high up there for me. He's a character I'm going to be eagerly revisiting a lot. So huge win in terms of Nick Fury's design, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm very happy with him, and yes, I totally agree that I'm gonna come back to him so much. I've really enjoyed him for my favorite part of the box, and and that he's yeah, like you said, really fun. As soon as you have another hero, he like all his dynamics open up, and you don't feel like you're gonna get suddenly, you know, accidentally double schemed on, and all of that. He's great. So good, Nick Fury. Great. Let's move on to Maria, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Maria Hill is like nothing before. That's my feeling. She's like nothing before. Experimental. She's the ultimate support character, both because she literally uses many supports,
Oh yeah.
but also because her allies and supports basically do all of the work. The thing I think that's most striking about her is that you might go an entire game without a single thwart or attack as Maria Hill. Like certainly basic activation, it's very easy to never attack or thwart with her, and even otherwise, like you might not have any attack or thwart cards in your deck. I don't think she has any attack
Nope.
or thwart. Yeah, so very likely that you're never attacking, but thwarting occasionally is typical, but very possible that you just never would even do that because you were always using her alter ego ability. If you want to read that off maybe, or pull that
Yeah.
up.
Well, her ultra is slightly crazy. I think just to start with, she can take shield supports from other aspects, which allows you to do
Yep.
some crazy combos. But what we're talking about here is that she's an action to exhaust her in Alter Ego, and you get to search your deck for a shield support and add it to your hand, which is really good. Find her whole game plan is around supports, so you can set that up. But you can find any support you want. It's not a random one. It's not discard until you find one. Search and get whatever you need for that moment, which is very, very good.
Yes, exactly. So she really, I mean, she might use that action as, I mean, she'll almost certainly use that action as the first thing she does
Yeah.
in the game. And then even if she flips to hero form that turn, on future turns, she might not actually attack or thwart. She might just flip down, exhaust again to get another support. And you might just keep going like that the whole game, especially if you do get stunned and confused, and then you just don't care. You just leave the
Yeah.
stunned and confused on there, and does not bother her because it's not stopping any of her things she's trying to do. So I think you'll like her if you enjoy, again, heroes who use counters,
Yep.
because she's absolutely bankrupted me on counters. She,
Oh
because you
yeah.
have so many supports, and she's all about moving them around and adding additional ones with her great card, the shield director card that adds another all-purpose counter, shield support every turn. There's just so many counters, and so between having her and Nick Fury on the board at the same time, I have no idea what to do with my tokens. I'm not prepared. Like they need to sell like an extra token back. I had to go buy a pack of dice just so I could. I never had done that before, but I just bought a pack of dice so I can use those for counters. So, but you'll enjoy her if you like that, like just moving around counters and sort of being director hell and just redirecting all of your stuff with the counters. You'll like her if you enjoy just supports and building out a huge board. You'll like her if you like allies as well, because I think those are a pretty integral part of her game plan. And I think you'll like her if you enjoy breaking the game even harder, with many of her cards, but especially with, of course, if you know Agents of Shield, we're going to talk about Pericles.
Oh
That
yeah.
just this card is insane. So to go into that just for a second, so Pericles, it says uses two supply counters, action exhaust the Pericles and remove a supply counter from it. Give a hero or villain a status card of your choice. Give an ally or minion a status card of your choice. And because of Maria Hill's hero ability that allows her to move counters around between shield supports, she can add counters to this from, field agent, command team, whatever, these cheap supports. She can add them to the Pericles, or she can just add them with her shield director card. And so once you have Pericles on the board, it's never going to run out. And you now have every turn you could do, for example, confuse the villain, tough on an ally. And that's two activations basically canceled,
Yep.
because it's now you could just block with that ally in the following phase, and then you could flip down the next turn, and he's confused. And the next turn you could have done another Pericles. Now he's stunned, and you have a tough on an ally. So you might do Pericles, and then the next turn do Pericles, and now you are flipped down to Alter Ego, and the villain is stunned, confused, and you have a tough ally, and you just start going forward from there. And if you combine that with the Iliad, which I love, is her signature ship that can remove a counter to either deal 5 damage to an enemy, remove 4 threat from a scheme, or heal 3 damage from an identity. The problem there is that now you go into a villain phase, the activation is canceled, but then also whatever the villain does is probably also going to get either canceled or erased almost immediately, because a scheme comes out, a side scheme, it just, you remove the threat with the Iliad. A minion comes out, you kill it with the damage. Some other thing happens, like unless it's throwing a total wrench into the system or maybe a tax, it's almost always going to just get eliminated by the Iliad.
Yep.
So yeah, so basically that's my case for sort of exactly why this breaks the game, is that essentially between those two, you're not only shutting down the entire villain phase, but you are very much on a path to just continue to roll forward. There's no sort of well, I spent all that stuff to do it, but now I'm sort of in the hole over here. It's like, no, you're just still, you have an economy that's going to continue to build in this way. And so, yeah, it does functionally break the game, at least for solo. I don't think it's really any less bad in or less good in multiplayer, just not nearly as like evident and apparent. And that's kind of a problem. I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so there's a few interesting things we touched on there. I have heard, Pericles, oh, the villain just stunned, confused all the time. And if they're stalwart, you just make yourself tough and, you're good to go. Um,
Right.
although, ironically, a quick detour back to what we were saying really early on about her, where, because she doesn't really attack or thwart very much, or it's not like important parts of her at least, she can kind of ignore stun or confuse. So, in some ways, she's the most stalwart character in the game without having the
Right.
stalwart keyword.
Uh huh.
But to take the Pericles for an example, yeah, it can shut down like the villain and that. And I have heard people say in multiplayer that's not a problem. But actually, she has multiple ways she could ready up the Pericles, and you can stun and confuse the villain and give 2 allies tough status cards very easily and shut down 4 activations.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Using
um,
her. What are the cards that ready it?
so
It's
there's multiple
the
cards. There's the new leadership ally Victoria Hand is probably the tamest
right.
version. We've got Agent 13 back from I think Sinister Motives. Maybe she's
Right.
definitely in a hero pack as well. There's a couple of ways to get her, and she is extremely good by the way. She goes in all my decks for Maria Hill immediately. But also she's got her on the double event card, 0 cost just to ready up. It depends on the cost of the cards, but 6 cost is the maximum. That will just ready up the single support, which is what Pericles is. So you definitely have options to stun, confuse, tough, and tough a lot of times.
Yes. Yes. There you go. And that's why it's like it goes on forever. It breaks the game, and there's no sort of slowing down that roll. Now with that, so something about the Pericles, it actually did frustrate me when we got it, because there are other cards in the game that can kind of break the game, or that like are like, okay, well, sure, like if you do this hero, it's very strong with this card, like it's gonna win most scenarios. But the problem with Pericles is twofold. I think one, I just got annoyed because we just had the announcement of the like legacy to current cycle, and so I had this feeling of like, oh, so you're gonna balance the game, quote unquote, with the future content. It felt like it was immediately denying that, because it felt like this is a broken thing you've given us in the box with the hero. It's in her deck. How is this any better or less broken than anything that's happened before? So I felt like it kind of told a lie to that, which I felt was annoying, and I've come past that, but it did just frustrate me during that kind of emotional time.
Yeah.
And but then the other thing is also just the way in which it breaks the game is I think the worst kind of way to do it. So something like dive bomb with honed technique kind of breaks the game, but it does so in a way that A, is not sealed tight, and B, is fun. it's dynamic. You're blasting the villain and so many minions. It's super cool, and they still have a chance to come back at you and hit you in other ways. Whereas this just kind of says, you take your ball and you say, you don't get to play.
Yeah.
You don't get to play. I'm gonna go home, and we're gonna play over here, and villain, you can sit over there, and you don't get to play the game.
When you
And
said villain, I thought you were talking to me.
yeah, you don't get to play the game. Oh, and that's just, I don't like that kind of that's a very, it's reductive. It's negative. It doesn't. Yeah, it's the worst way to break the game, is when you kind of nullify what's going on, and sort of no one gets to play an exciting game. So
Yeah.
that's my problem with it. And also, to answer like the sort of I think the only answer to this is like, well, just don't play it, right? Like if you don't like it so much, don't use it. And I don't think that works as an argument for people. And it's just not a good reason to design an interaction like that breaks it. It was just, oh, you can just not do that.
Yeah, I
However,
mean,
yeah, go ahead.
I,
Go
I
ahead.
was
Go
I was
ahead.
gonna say I do kind of agree. I mean, the 6 cost heli-carriers, the Cersei, the Bellerophon, the Douglas, the Pericles, hopefully pronounced all this correctly,
Yeah.
they are new cards that are basically designed for Maria Hill, that come with Maria Hill. To say, oh, just don't use this new thing you have, isn't like a very satisfying answer, I think, in that regard, especially when
Right.
it's so recent. Um, the other thing I wanted to say is that as aspect cards, I actually think they are fine. Like, to take them onto other heroes, I don't think I would say any of them
Right.
are overpowered. But on Maria Hill, overpowered is maybe, it's certainly a word that will get a lot of opinions, but certainly very, very, very strong, very consistent, and very much solving. With the Pericles and Iliad combo, basically everything. And I do like interaction. It's people always thought I would really like the Deadpool character because I like Star-Lord. Like, oh, he's going to be risky as well. But for me, Deadpool also kind of bypasses some key mechanics in Marvel Champions, and it's kind of fun. It's a bit different, but it's not something I keep coming back to because I kind of feel like the kind of flow of like the villain attacking and like a lot of the damage component of the game kind of doesn't function with Deadpool. He kind of bypasses a part of the game that I tend to enjoy engaging with. And Maria Hill,
Yes.
it's a little bit of the same. Pericles shuts a lot down, but the Iliad also can kind of deal with everything. I said in my preview video, I hope it's not like Venom's multi-gun where it can kind of just solve everything. And that was kind of an
It's
exaggeration
like
actually, because I was going to say for Venom, I think it's a combination of his multi-gun and his pistols that can kind of flexibly do anything together. The Iliad kind of feels like all three of those cards in one card, but it's not an attack when you deal damage. It's not forwarding when you remove threat from a scheme with it. So it bypasses even more. It bypasses, I believe things like guard. Again, if you're stunned, you can still damage. And in that regard, Maria Hill ignores a lot of the game.
yeah. Exactly, exactly, and that's the tough thing there. Now I will say, so it's actually it's hard to even like consider her in the light of Pericles, honestly, at least for me. And that might seem like extreme, but it's just hard to even like consider how does she actually play, because like you said, I mean, if you are playing with Pericles, it effectively shuts down most of the game. I think if you could just not play with Heracles. And I think a lot of people do this. A lot of people who are more involved in the community, I've heard them say this. Like if they're they're good players, they know how to use Pericles in the Iliad and get those out and then shut things down. They just know that and they self-moderate and they say, I'm just not going to include Pericles. And they have a much more fun time with her because she's still very strong. She's still very negative or nullifying of the villain, but she doesn't have that single loop of completely shutting down. So I do think that's a good. I think like if you're a player who's worried about that, like just don't play with it. Is honestly probably the best advice of just set it aside and you'll have more fun with her being challenged and having to actually interact with the villain.
Yeah.
Probably.
I think one of the big things to say about Pericles for me is he can take a lot of tension out of the scenario. And if I'm not being
Yes.
challenged, then I might as well just say I've won and stop playing. Is kind of how I feel sometimes.
Exactly. Exactly.
um,
Exactly. The one other thing I've been trying to do recently is sort of an in between, sort of a little like a lighter nerf to it, which is I'm running Pericles, but I'm not allowing myself to add any counters to it. So, because of that, Pericles represents only either two uses or a single use, and then use her card, the Hard Call, which deals damage to all enemies equal to the card's cost, which would be 6, which is fun.
yeah.
So that's the deck that I've just put together. I actually am bringing that to Con of Heroes. Is a Maria Hill Justice deck, and I have Pericles in it. But that's my plan: is to basically self-moderate in that way. Where if I do play it, I'm only playing it knowing that it's basically going to represent either two uses or a single use, and then I'll use the Hard Call. And I think that will be fun. I think that honestly will be really fun because it doesn't block me out of using the card. It doesn't give me awkward questions of people being like, why aren't you using the Pericles? Because that's the problem with some of these cards, right? Is like, if you don't use it, people are like, we were counting on you shutting everything down. And it's like, I don't want to do that. But I also think I rarely use the Hard Call because I usually want to keep my big carriers. And I think it'd be fun to have a reason to potentially do that, where it's like, well, for 2 cost, 6 damage to every enemy could definitely be better than another couple statuses.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. I do definitely think this tells a story that we're talking multiple times about how to not play her as you could play her, and it comes in her precon.
Exactly.
Um,
It's a
so
problem.
yeah, I mean, I do think there are a lot of upsides to Maria because I feel like we've had a bit of a negative side. There are some upsides I want to cover. I mean, just the basic way she works, moving counters from one shield support to another, typically from a smaller one, like we've mentioned command team, I think, but like surveillance team, field agent is a big one that goes into like all my Maria decks as well. I'm gonna be honest, it's just so good.
Yep.
Uh, you could say the use of each of those supports normally, using one of their counters to do what they're actually meant to do. I don't know, maybe it's worth like one resource or so. But if you move them onto a big 6 cost support like the Iliad or the Pericles or the Cersei, you start to get resource worth sort of like, I don't know, 3 to 5, honestly. It's a ton of value. So, yeah, you're losing a counter of one thing, but by moving it, it's gaining multiple resources of extra value, which makes her ability very strong. Then you've got her signature ally, which we haven't even talked about. He is absurd. Sometimes I'll just use
Mhm.
Pericles to help avoid his consequential. Because yeah, we've got field agents as well, probably, but I'm using this guy a lot because he is absurd, and other allies
Yes.
that are good too. He adds the counter on as well, and then Shield Director adds a counter on. For me, it's very, very realistic to have 2 of these out. Let's say Iliad and Pericles, keep them fully topped up, even if I'm readying them. Sometimes I can keep 3 big supports out and keep them going basically most of the game as well, which is crazy. I do think she has a slight weakness for like a couple of the early turns, but that's probably only going to become apparent if you're like expert against some of the harder villains. I mean, I feel like on standard mode, you're not as pressured at the start, and if you just get a little bit set up with her, everything does kind of get solved.
Yep. Yep.
but
Absolutely.
but I'm coming full circle on this. She's kind of a building up character. You're putting out these supports. One card talks to another. You move one thing to another. One thing generates something for another. It kind of feels like I'm building like some. It feels like I'm almost playing like a factory game or something, and it's like everything's talking to each
Yes.
other. And I think I have fun with her trying to optimize my factory, trying to like go for all the nuances and get that absolute maximum value. I think that's kind of a fun puzzle. But in terms of playing a hero in a superhero game, I don't get that kind of, that's the other opposite side here. I don't feel like the tension and the back and forth, like high action thing with her. So you might like her, but she might not feel like typical Marvel champions.
That's exactly right. You very well might like her. Again, if you like that whole counters, yeah, that's true. It almost feels like a Euro worker placement game with like resource management that you're translating, 2 food into 3 ore, and then the 3 ore. Yeah,
Yep.
it feels like that kind of dynamic. But like you said, this is Marvel Champions, so it's kind of cool that that's a thing you could do within the Marvel Champions world, but also isn't necessarily what everyone's going to want to do. So
Yeah.
I do think overall for both heroes, both are fun, very different heroes. It doesn't feel like they play it safe. It's experimental, like we've been saying.
Yeah.
They're probably overpowered each in their own way, to use that dreaded word, right? Overpowered, but only badly so if you really lean into one specific path for each of them. Which for Nick is the whole like, if you can just stay in stealth basically and make that work, sure, that could be overpowered. And for Maria, certainly, if you just play the Pericles, play the Iliad, and shut everything down. But if you don't do those 2 things, if you aren't able to or don't stick with like, I'm going to try and play the most reductive way to play these heroes, then they're really fun and they're really different. And the only other thing I would say that's a bad thing is that to me, they don't feel as good to play together, in my opinion, which is a little bit too bad because the main thing being that both of them have their signature allies are extremely powerful, and for Maria Hill, I think her Nick Fury is just as powerful as Nick Fury's Maria Hill, but it's like less necessary for Nick Fury. His Maria Hill ally just like makes his strategy pop, makes his economy pop. It feels more necessary for him. And so when you don't have those, it's a little bit sad when you're playing them together. Like, yes, you can use the Super Spies card, and that can be awesome. Their team up card, but they're 2 heroes who I wouldn't push to try and play together as heroes as much. I like when there's only one of them in the game.
I would agree with that. It kind of feels a little bit like Rogue and Gambit. They are good
Yep.
together, but I think the signature allies are so good. Especially Gambit losing out, like a
Yes.
zero cost Rogue, for example, feels terrible.
Yes.
So it's a little bit of that, unfortunately. I do think their team up card is really good, the Super Spice
Yeah.
card, but mostly
It's a
for
little
Maria.
disappointing. It's a little disappointing, but I will say too, one thing that I think that helped me like with my view of the game overall was when I realized that it's more like a movie like Infinity War or Endgame, where it's like my hero and my allies is sort of like one part of the movie, one like track, and your hero and your allies is another track, and they can meet together or interface. But I don't know. I just think that it's just as cool to sort of be like, I've got my signature ally, and that sort of team up to me is sort of just as cool as or more cool than trying to team up the two heroes themselves. And so I've had more and more fun thematically when I think of my deck as sort of like this is my part of the movie. This is my track of the story, and we're all fighting this villain together. And there's multiple tracks that are running alongside each other. And so it's less about trying to have like the best, most thematic combination of heroes. So I think it's fine that they don't play the best together. So
Yeah, I would say they are strong enough that you can play them together with no problems as well. Like
yes,
you totally can do that and get very good
that
results.
too, that
But
too, that too.
But I think if you play this game less often, you might get the box, want to play the characters together, and then you might not play Marvel Champions for like a month or two or something or whatever. Whereas someone probably like more like me and Andy here, we probably play quite often. I would say, at least
Yeah.
I do. So I'm always trying different characters with different characters. To reference Endgame. Nebula and War Machine, maybe they can go on an adventure together. You can take
Yes.
different characters around. And I've definitely had a lot of fun with that. Nick makes for a very interesting character to work alongside others. A couple of other thoughts I have. Maria Hill, I think if you like Doctor Strange, you'll probably like Maria Hill because there's a lot of status card stuff and kind of the way that the invocation deck lives outside your deck. Once you just summon, like, I don't know, the Pericles and or Iliad, and they're on the board, it kind of feels like they're just, almost an invocation deck kind of thing. They're kind of there. You can keep using them doing stuff while you're just playing your other cards alongside them for the rest of the game.
Yep, I agree with that. That's great. Yeah, and both I'm quite happy with the hero designs of both. Especially Nick, but Maria's fun. And Maria, I like that she took this like the quote unquote support hero to its furthest end. Like sort of showed us a new boundary of the game almost.
It is.
And
It
I think
is.
that's really cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's very Marvel Champions for a character designed as a support hero to be so good at supporting. They support themselves like to
Yes,
extraordinary
yes.
heights.
Yes, yes.
But
I'm curious. I'm curious to see where other future evolutions of her design land, because I
yeah,
don't think they'll land as extreme as her. So I like that she kind of painted the furthest point, and now they'll probably have more heroes that come down the pipe that are like, oh, this is like Maria, but not so extreme on the support and the control and all that. So
yeah.
I'm happy with that. Cool. Want to move on to the aspect cards?
Yeah, I think I would just say about Maria that
Oh
I do
yeah.
think there's a lot of people out there who do like her. I have seen, I see negative comments, but I see positive poll results just on like my time on the internet. I just think if you do
Good.
like that building, if you do like that factory thing, and I also think maybe she has a lot of initial value, and maybe she's not a character you're going to want to play. Like if you do play it very often, all the time, every week, every month, but she's going to be fun to revisit sometimes.
Yes.
And my
Yes.
my final
Agreed.
point I think I will say is as a support character, we haven't even really talked about like how the Cersei works or things like that. But just the way that you can do certain things with her. If you do try to play more into the team role, there's a lot of potential for really cool team support builds. So I wanted that to make sure that that is out there because that is very much
So
true.
that's good. Thank you for saying that because I feel like my Pericles rant outweighed everything else. So
I mean, that's a big
she's
part I wanted to talk about as well. I do agree. So
great.
pros
That's
and
good.
cons.
Perfect. Okay, well, aspect cards. I feel like this could be a quicker section because
Yeah,
honestly, there's a lot of reprints, which is unfortunate. And so the cards that are good or bad in the aspect cards kind of stand out, I think, pretty easily. So, yeah, for me, my main notes is practice plan. Practice plan is an absolute game changer for Black Widow, for one thing. So that's the card that says after you discard a preparation card you control, discard practice plan, return that card to your hand from your discard pile. It's zero cost. So for Black Widow, that's just like printing your own money. Like that's just like that is just straight gain because you're replacing the card you play this card for 0. You're replacing that card with a preparation, a different preparation that you really want, and it's pinging another damage because it is a preparation itself. And that card that you're gaining, like a grappling hook for Black Widow, she can just play it immediately again with her gauntlets. So like it's literally, I've never seen a single card in the game that moved a hero like 1.5 tiers. If you like tier listing, I think it literally moved her like 1.5 tiers as a character. Personally, I think it's an absolute game changer for her and just super super fun.
Yeah, practice plan is a crazy card. Actually, there is something else about Nick I wanted to say as well. We're going to bounce back to Nick very
Okay,
quickly
okay.
based on this card. Practice plan with Nick really changes up what he can do because intelligence
Yes,
analysis, as we talked about, it stops an encounter card, basically a treachery. That is incredibly powerful, and just to be able to get that back on repeat is incredibly powerful. And something I realized for Nick is that I think they kept his 3 most powerful cards, arguably, but for me, his 3 most powerful cards out of his initial preview. So for me, it's intelligence analysis, which I think during Lime God's
so
reveal.
good, so good.
It's Fury's flying car, which is just so consistent. You can
Yeah,
fort twice or attack or whatever. It's just so much flexibility. And also, and I think this was, I'm going to pronounce it wrong. I think it was a Spanish podcast that revealed the signature allies, La Mano Stefanos or something. Sorry, guys.
yeah,
That
yep.
Maria Hill, just so incredibly good. I think those 3 cards, because they stick around, intelligence analysis is a one-time discard at prep. But with practice plan, it does stick around. Getting that
Forever.
kind of
Yeah.
consistency does solve so much. So that's kind of. I don't think Nick is overpowered per se, although I do play a lot more 2 player, so he's not solving as much. But he definitely has a lot of potential to consistently shut down and solve things.
Yeah, I don't think of him as like overpowered. It's more like the like breaking or like shutting down the villain is just the
Very powerful
dynamic that
control.
yeah, they can, yeah, exactly, the hyper control.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna kind of take this back to the aspect in the basic cards now because we talked about practice plan for Black Widow. I think Leo Fitz and potentially Gemma Simmons also quite good for Black
Yes.
Widow because she has so much tech more than you'd believe. Like her gauntlets, most of her preparations, her synth suit, I think it's called, and also
Mm-hmm.
these guys because these are 3 cost supports that are cheaper if you have the shield trait, and they find tech, they pay for tech. War Machine has shield on his alter ego, so War Machine these are game changers for. So I think these maybe practice plan can be good for anyone, but it's definitely better for certain characters. These are cards which, for certain characters, have really like helped them a lot, and I do quite
Yes,
like that. So if you've got a
I
new
totally agree.
collection as your first expansion, this might not be doing as much for you. But if you've got all the characters, there's going to be several key characters where these make a big difference. I really like those.
Yeah, I agree. They're both solid to great, like depending on the hero. And with Black Widow, I think they're great. I think you're right. If I was to revise my tier statement, I think practice plan is like a tier changer for Black Widow, but then Leo Fitz and Gemma actually I think go the other like tier. Honestly, they are such fun cards. Those are my other favorite cards alongside practice plan, as well as then Slingshot.
Yeah, I say we'll
So
go to Slingshot a little bit later because I'm going to be lazy and I've got the
okay.
basic stuff on the screen from Nick right
Oh
now.
no, nice. Yeah, sorry. Yes, great. I'll have to go back to the
The
Hall of
slingshot I
Heroes and
like a
walk
lot
through.
too. I think the other new basic card we've got in Nick, apart from the team up, we've got Nick Fury Senior, who I'm gonna say I like a lot. He's like a more balanced, normal Nick Fury ally, but I still think he's very, very powerful. So I mean, yeah, I'm curious what your thoughts are on Nick Fury Senior.
Yeah, he's really, really good. I mean, whenever you have these allies that come in, do something on play, and then you can block with them, and then they also can combo off of like Get Ready or Command Team to get even more value out of them. He's really good. I think like thematically, there's something a little bit funny, or not thematically as much as he. I'm tempted to throw him into like so many decks or to
Yeah,
like really exploit him. So I think that's my only issue with him is that I think he's a card that I almost stay back a little bit from because I want to use him where he's going to be fun and not just exploited because I think he's very powerful.
yeah,
And yeah, speaking of Black Widow, he's really really good with Black Widow again, and I really enjoy him there. The tough status card is just really fun. I'm a big fan of tough status rather than stun and jump blocking. I just think tough feels more fun and dynamic.
I agree.
And yeah, yeah. So I really like him. He's great. I'm always trying to stay away from. I'm having to like constantly have a battle of like don't misuse this character.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like he's really good, but he can kind of be I don't know if generic's the right word, but he's so generalized. Like he can do a bit of everything that you could put him in theoretically almost any deck. There are certain decks you wouldn't,
Yes.
but he can go into so
Yeah.
many that how good he is and how many decks he can go in can hurt maybe the variety of your experience with Marvel Champions. So holding back might be good. But I would say I also want to talk about the tough status cards just quickly. I think that's a really good point. It's a superhero game. Sometimes hiding behind my allies, especially I don't know, Professor X, doesn't feel very heroic.
Yep.
Um, and stuns I don't mind, but they stop the villain attacking. So like the boost cards and any after they attack mechanics on the villain kind of get shut down. So tough kind of bypasses both of those problems. It kind of focuses more on your hero. Although you could put it on an ally. I do just quite like how that works. But Nick Fury,
Right. And there's even things like if the boost adds piercing or if the boost deals a damage to your
oh
hero. There's
yeah,
ways that it can that there's always at least a chance of it really screwing with you. Yeah, I agree with that.
yeah. The only other thing I'll say, maybe more positively for Nick Fury, and I do think he's a good card. I do think he's fun, but something I do think is very positive is sometimes solo aggression decks struggle for threat removal, but you can play him, choose a threat removal option, and you've got 5 threat removal immediately that turn. That you can actually divide between 2 places because he can basic for
It's
1,
so much.
and that is huge.
Yeah, and I like that I almost always am using his 3 um, threat removal or his tough status, and only using the 2 cards if that's like if I absolutely need to dig for a specific card or something, or need to play this other card. But I like that I'm not doing the like Nick Fury. It's so often just draw the original Nick Fury. Drawing just the 3 cards
It's so
is like
good.
so good that you really have to like have the perfect reason to deal 4 damage to use the damage, and almost never do you need the 2 threat removal. So I like that he's different in that way.
Yeah, I'd probably say I feel like we're almost like 40% threat removal, 40% card draw here, and then like sometimes just depending what hero we're playing, get the tough. But for the characters in the box, like Nick Fury Jr. and Maria Hill, Jr. is often in stealth form, and Maria's got Pericles, so I don't often need extra toughs from
Right,
at least in
right.
solo or like lower
Yeah.
player counts.
He's
It's the
he's been
thing.
glued into my Black Widow deck because I've been enjoying
That's so good.
flip down to alter ego and throw a tough status on her, and she's
Yeah.
her one thing is being like squishy if things get through to her, so it's nice to have a tough status on her.
Yeah. If we go up to the rest of like Nick Fury's cards here in Justice, if you don't have anything else to add about those,
No, that's
um,
great. Yeah.
we have Informant, Intelligence, and Prism Dust, and it's the new cards, not reprints. And for me, I think in theory, I like all of these cards, but all of them feel like a little bit low impact and a little bit niche. It's kind of how I feel. So I don't mind having them, but I feel like I'm not using them in a great variety of decks and situations.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I think that intelligence is not super high impact normally, but it is really fun that it exists. I like that.
I think it gets better in
Uh,
like 3 to 4 player. Like
oh
solo, I'm
yeah,
never playing intelligence.
totally. And then informant, yeah, just feels low impact, like you said, and there's just things with minions that again, or at least in multiplayer, so often people kind of lay claim, like the aggression player or whoever lays claim to the minions, and so it's yeah, just leaving a minion on the board and letting them scheme kind of feels bad. I've enjoyed that card when you have the rare scenario where a minion could actually come out and scheme on the same uh, at the same time.
Yeah,
Is That's where it's fun.
I think when we get onto the Thunderbolt scenario, like Informant is a better card in that scenario than most
Oh,
places
right.
in the game.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that. That's so
but
true. That's so
but
true.
aside from that, like
Prism
a general
Dust
sense,
Prism Dust is I really like Prism Dust. It like you say, it's pretty low impact in a lot of situations, but I just think it's awesome. It reminds me of the Salt guy, Salt Bay, is that his name?
I have no
The
idea.
that meme on the internet of the guy who's like he's got his hand kind of crooked and he's like got sunglasses on, I think, and he's like dropping salt onto some food or whatever. It looks like that. It just has so much like kind of like funny style and like I don't know, prism dust. Like it's so I don't know. It just seems so like extra. And Yeah, 2 damage and a confuse. I really like this for like when you expect to have bigger minions who might take a bit of time to bring down. It's really fun when you like do this to like a tombstone or somebody, and then you can flip to alter ego and he's confused, and he has a little bit of damage on him, and so like
Yeah,
you can set up to take down a minion in a couple of turns. So I find it really fun and like I don't know. I really appreciate when a card is not just strictly about the value, but also about sort of like the style. And
yeah,
it gives me enough of a reason to run it, just even to be able to do this fun thing, versus a card that's just like strictly bad.
yeah.
So yeah,
I will
I like
say
this one.
I will say for Prism Dust, again, if you take the Thunderbolts, big minions into example, Prism Dust becomes a lot better as well. But I really like what you're
Right?
hitting with like the theme and the fun of the card, like intelligence and informant. However good or bad, or how often you're using them, how niche, etc., they are thematically like on point. I love the theme of informant, where a minion schemes, it actually removes threat instead of placing it. You know, they're actually giving you information instead of helping the villain with their plan. And then intelligence, moving around the encounter cards is kind of what it does. You've got intelligence, so you can kind of manipulate things. You've got like influence on it. You kind of know what's coming. So I think they are thematically perfect.
Yes, absolutely. And I like looking for opportunities to have just the funniest hero to use Prism Dust. So it's been a lot of fun.
Do you want to maybe slingshot our way up to leadership cards now?
Yes, yes, the leadership cards. So we've got what do we have new here? So you had mentioned Victoria Hand before.
Yes, and just to
Uh,
for the viewers' sake, the other cards in Justice are reprints, so we'll probably not cover them in any detail here.
right, exactly. Yep. But for leadership, there's a good number of new cards. There's Victoria Hand, who enters play ready as a shield support. I think you mentioned like probably the best use of that is for Maria's
100%.
shield supports. Yeah, I haven't found her super good outside of that. Have you found any other good use for her?
I mean, there is Captain Marvel who has the insane shield traded support card. You know, the what's it called, Alpha Flight Station, where she draws two cards, I think, if
R-
she's Alter Ego.
Right,
So you can just
right.
turn this into two card draw.
Yeah. The only issue there being that she's got a difficult value proposition still of since she costs 3. I found I like her better if I have like a government liaison, maybe to like,
hmm
if I'm planning to have shield discounts and that sort of thing, then or organizational support. Maybe it's good with Captain Marvel because she could just use a 3 resource card, to play her.
Captain
So
Marvel
yeah,
definitely has a lot of money.
she has the money to do it. Yes,
but
exactly.
but
So that's a good use of her.
But yeah, really mainly it's like Maria Hill card for me. So I actually think Agent 13, I'll try and put it up on screen here, this basic card we've already got printed twice in the game. I feel like at full cost, yes, it's more expensive, but you get like almost triple the uses of the response in a way. She can ready up shield ports several times. If you keep healing her, she just keeps readying up shield supports, even, multiple times a turn. Like, you can do all sorts of crazy things with Agent 13. And she's a basic card, so I can take her in any aspect. So Victoria Hand, I'm only taking if I really, really want to ready up shield supports, which gives it a very narrow kind of window. So I'm not a huge fan of her, but she's fine in a couple of places.
For sure. And she has a really fun picture.
Yeah, well, she's got a giant weapon, but she's got one attack.
Massive, massive gun. That gun is huge. I love it.
She's got one attack.
And she's got, I know, and she's got explosions going on behind her. She looks cool.
Yeah.
I think I just wish there was like either maybe she costs one less, or she, yeah, I think maybe costing one less would make her a lot more appealing. But again, so if you have a discount or have resources to blow, that makes her more fun. But well, Slingshot though, man,
Yeah.
Slingshot has got to be one of the best cards added from this whole box, right?
Slingshot is very fun and very good.
Yes, very good, very fun. I love that you. So how often are you playing her as a normal ally, and how often are you just spending the energy resource to put her into play?
Yeah, so for the viewers, this is a bit of a complicated ally. As an
Right.
action, you can spend a resource, and she enters play from your hand. So you can use the action when she's in your hand to put her into play. Can be under any player's control as well, which has some fun little combos. But you basically put her into play. You can use her once, or maybe ready her, etc., for different combos. But you basically use her, and at the end of the phase, if she's still around, she comes back to you. So she's really like a yo-yo. She kind of just comes back. It's a really fun. I think that represents her abilities pretty well. Uh, and I am using that action a lot as opposed to just paying the free resource cost for her. It's difficult to say. It depends when you find her in the middle of a game and so on and so forth. But I'm almost always preferring to spend an energy to put her into play as opposed to play her. I feel like for me, playing her normally is a backup plan. She, in that way, works like a
Yeah,
resource sink. Like, oh, my hand didn't work out in a great way. Well, I'll just play Slingshot instead of bouncing her into play with the energy and then getting her back later. The timing works that
yeah.
when she comes back to you, it's after you've drawn your hand of cards. So you spend the energy, she jumps in, maybe you fought with her. End of the player phase, you draw, let's say, your 5 cards in hero form. Then she comes back and she's your 6th card. So she kind of refunds herself in some sense, which is very, very good.
It's enormously good. I remember playing with my brother, and he was like, "Wait," he was like, "Wait, that's so good." The fact that you can just basically keep her for the rest of the game as a two thwart or two attack, like whenever you need it, is kind of crazy. It is truly crazy.
And if your
So
ally limit ever gets full, like in a multiplayer game, you can play it under someone else's control and they can
play
do
under
it. And
someone
it's an
else.
action, so
Yeah,
you can do it off
exactly.
turn, alter ego, hero form. You
Exactly,
just send her
exactly.
in.
She's so good, and I'm only just realizing that her that her alter ego name is Yo Yo.
Yeah,
I didn't
that's what I'm
actually
saying.
realize that. That's funny. I was like, yeah, she's kind of like a slingshot. I mean, she like jumps out, but she's kind of more like a yo-yo. Like she comes back. That's funny. I did not process her name there. That's great. Yeah, I think she's super fun, super powerful, and it's like powerful, but in a way that doesn't feel like it's game breaking, or it's compared to so many other leadership things. Like leadership is hard to design for. I feel like, because it has to be like not too good to break things, but good enough to compete with the many strong leadership cards.
Yeah, it's
So
difficult
she's fun.
because I did a video on allies being like, in my opinion, the strongest card type, and it's on multiple levels. It's not just that you can block with them; it's that they can also fort and attack. They're very flexible, but the costs are also just very efficient. And if they have some kind of action or response, and as well as being on the board for multiple turns, which gives you consistency. There's a lot going on with allies, so design is definitely very difficult. I do think she's extremely good. But at the same time, you're probably getting 2 attack or 2 forward out of her most turns, and that just doesn't win you a game or break the game. It's just very helpful.
I also just think it encourages a different style of leadership play and building, which is fun to me. I think it sort of counteracts, I think, a lot of the sort of just spam allies that block for you type of way of playing. It allows you to do something else, which is just, I think that's brilliant. So
Yeah,
I love her.
I might on that note, as we're going through the leadership allies, maybe skip down to the basic allies here because we
Yeah,
have Grant Ward, who also instead of blocking and defending, he's got this line of text which says Grant Ward cannot defend.
I love that. Yeah. I almost wish that was like a more common thing, right? But
Yeah,
like, yes, yeah. I love that he cannot defend, and so he's completely. It's like this cheap ally, but it changes that whole dynamic of like cheap ally equals cheap chump blocker. Changes that and has this awesome. Not only can he not defend, but he has that after you reveal a treachery, you have to either spend a mental resource, or if you don't, he's going to functionally attack you,
betray
deals
you.
damage, which is and then remove betray you, which is so fun. I think I love when a card has like a narrative and a story all to itself, and this one does. So it's very fun. It's very powerful. Make the call and command team with Grant Ward feels really really crazy, and yeah, really good, and also it's just fun because then even if he betrays you, it's like that was fun while it lasted. So
Yeah, Grant Wood to me is very, very strong. So yeah, the false response is a downside. You got to keep paying money, or he's gonna like attack you, etc. But I don't know. Like, if you play Grant Ward, fought with him, then you get a treachery in the villain phase, and you pay it. Then you do the same, and you get a treachery in the next villain phase, and you pay that, and then use him again. Consequential damage defeats him. You've basically paid 3 effective resources, and you've got 6 threat removal. So like in the worst case, if you keep getting treacheries and keep paying it, he's still very, very good. And I
yep.
think I think the downside, if you somehow don't have a mentor or don't want to spend it, taking 2 damage and losing him, it's not the end of the world because you only paid 0. So sometimes he's zero cost. I don't get any treacheries, and it's just like six
All
swatting.
value all day. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think
uh,
I actually forget sometimes about the you may spend a mental resource actually. So I think there are a lot of times where I'm like, please don't draw treachery, please don't draw treachery, and then I get one. I'm like, oh, bye Grant. Yeah, he's really fun. I'm really glad that he exists. Very cool card. How do you feel about Melinda May?
Yeah, Grant Ward, last thing I'll just say is I think maybe he's
Oh yeah,
slightly too good for his cost. Like, he's another character like Nick Fury Sr. I genuinely think you can put in a huge variety of decks, but I do again like
right.
how good he is for aggression, for forwarding, even characters like Hulk, who's got the physical resource. So he's got at places where I think he's needed and very useful. Then other places
Yeah.
is like Make the Call, where he goes crazy.
Well, and to that end though too, the fact that he can be in a lot of decks, but the fact that he cannot defend, I like that. I like that because it
That is
yeah,
fun.
you could throw him in all sorts of decks, but you're throwing him in to do what? To manage things and have a fun, to make the game fun
Yeah.
versus like, oh, this is a cheap chump blocker who you throw into every deck. So
Yeah.
that's I don't mind that he can go in anywhere.
Yeah. To speak about Melinda, I like Melinda. Like the values or anything don't blow me away, but she feels like very well balanced. I think there's certain niche decks or certain places that benefit from looking at the top of the encounter deck. Even in like stun heavy decks, like in solo to see like your encounter card. Because you basically get to see the top card when you use her, and then you can discard it. So you kind of get to mulligan your next boost or encounter card depending on what stuns and how many players there are. So I do like that quite a lot, but she doesn't go in every deck. So I think she's kind of very well balanced.
Totally agree. I like that she's like got like a somewhat exciting but not terribly exciting ability, and not super exciting stats, but totally solid. And I really like her. I put her in a lot of decks that use shield cards, maybe that have a government liaison to
Yeah.
discount, or that run a lot of the power in all of us. Because if you run her alongside cards like Grant Ward and Slingshot, you've got a choice between, do I play this sort of cheap ally, or do I play this expensive ally who's going to stay on the board? And it can sort of depend on or what cards am I playing? Like, am I playing my events that I have stuff for, or do I have the resources to sort of drop on this bigger ally? And so it gives you something to spend on when you want to. And yeah, so I like her a lot. Does
Yeah.
not blow things away, but I think that's a really good type of ally to have in the game. So, and honestly, I think makes she's when I saw her, I was like, okay, she's the kind of card that makes this box more valuable for a newer player too,
Yes.
which I think is a cool thing. It's like you are really hurting for basic allies when you have just a core set, and so I like that she's a very fair, very balanced ally who you can add to your lineup.
Yeah, I guess if you don't have many cards in your collection, Grant, Melinda, and Nick Fury Sr. are going to be three really useful cards. You can kind of drop wherever you
Yes,
need. So that's a really good point I hadn't thought about.
yeah. It kind of solves your aggression slash protection threat and threat management problems that you have in the core set. So
Yeah. Should we move on to some of the leadership cards? I think we've only got two other new ones we haven't mentioned. We've got Organizational Support and Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D.
yes, Agents of Shield. I'm waiting for there to be a Shield, like honorary Shield agent card for this to really pop, because I it's hard to have each of your characters have the Shield trait.
It's easy for
Like,
Maria Hill, but she also has so many good cards that like I don't think she necessarily needs this.
it's extremely easy for Maria. She doesn't really need it though. It's easy enough for Nick because he's got Shield on both sides. But for anyone else, it's like you might have Shield on your alter ego, but you don't have it on your hero. And I
Winter
guess alter ego is
Soldier
where
will
you want it.
Yeah, I said Winter Soldier is a new character coming up, not out yet, who will have Shield
Right.
on his hero side, so there will be another candidate there. But yeah, 100%.
That's a good point. But yeah, or even like Black Widow has Shield on her alter ego, but she has better ways to cancel things.
She
Mostly,
has
I guess
loads of
it could be
ways.
helpful for her in alter ego, but
Yeah, but
leadership's not also like the aspect I'm always playing her in. And
the
yeah, maybe I do need to run
mm.
her in a Black Widow deck though.
But the only other thing I'll say to this is you're not really canceling an encounter card. You're canceling one, but then you're getting another one. So you're hoping it's less bad than the one you cancelled. And statistically, it will be, but not always. And it's just you're changing something bad for something less bad but still bad. So it's quite a big investment, I think, in terms of money and
Yes.
uncertainty and restricting your ally choices and stuff. So
Right.
for me, this isn't a card I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, I'm really not, and I think I'll feel differently once, if and when, which I don't know that we necessarily are, but if there is some sort of way of becoming a shield identity on both sides that anyone could get, preferably even without having to be a shield person to give it. I
Mm,
think that would 100% change this card, because then any hero could hypothetically now become a agent of shield, and have a really cool control piece that they can add to their deck. I just think that could be fun.
yeah.
But until such time, I this is mostly in my binder, and it's hard for me to pull it out. I don't have an actual binder, but I call it binder fodder because of people who do use binders. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's my feelings on that card.
Yeah, I don't think I've got anything more to add to that. It's just I like the idea, but for me right now, it just hasn't hit right.
Yes, yes,
Organizational support, on the other hand, new resource card, that one has landed with me quite well, better than I expected. I think, basically, this is a resource card that when you spend it, you can exhaust allies and supports that share a trait with you to generate printed resources on those cards. So effectively, you exhaust 3 allies and/or supports, up to 3 total. This card, because it already has a little resource icon in this corner here, can generate, up to 4 resources, but it's fine if it generates 2 or 3. You don't have to exhaust everything to get value out of it. And Avengers have stuff like Quinjet or even Avengers Tower, and you don't have an Avenger in your hand. Shield has a lot of candidates for this. I think there's some fun places to get extra value.
yes. I totally agree. It's a fun kind of play on the band together type of resource card, and I really enjoy it. I think my one of my favorite places to do it has been Ant-Man. I think
Yes,
he's fun. Although I have to always remind myself that allies and supports, not
not the
upgrades.
giant
And so,
strength thing.
yeah, giant strength. I get a little
We've had
confused. I'm
that.
like, which ones can I do? Yeah. But man, it's really fun with him. I love playing leadership with Ant-Man, because using a card like this or band together to play like a giant strength for with one single resource
Yeah.
feels, or giant stomp, I should say, giant stomp, feels really, really good. So it's fun where it works. It's definitely, you have to do a lot of like sort of thinking and guesswork. No, not guesswork, but like, yeah, digging to sort of be like, could this what kind of deck could use this? But I like that. That's a pretty unique thing. There aren't that many cards that just kind of on their face say, "Hey, figure this out. Go find allies and supports that are going to make this card worthwhile."
Yeah, I agree. So overall, I like it, but like I'm probably not using it in a lot of decks. But the decks I am, it is very fun for characters that need to pay those big costs. That primarily, it's primarily supports I prefer to exhaust. So supports that maybe like passive benefits that don't mind if they're exhausted is like ideal. Um,
Totally, exactly. The Triskelion, that's a good
yes,
one.
perfect one for
If you have
like Maria and
shield,
Nick.
yes, yes. Like you were mentioning the Binjets, is a fun one. That's a very fun use of a old card.
I think that about covers the aspect cards. If there's unless there's anything you would like to add.
No, I think that is good. I think
Well,
there's a couple more things that could be said, but I think we could totally move on.
I will say we didn't cover these 6 cost headache carriers too much, but for my money, I'm generally not including them outside of Maria unless I'm trying to do something a bit funny, kind of like for the sake of it. Richer characters like Star-Lord and Bishop, for etc., can afford the 6 costs much more easily than most characters. But for my money, they're a little bit slow tempo. They've got limited uses, so when I can't recharge them, I'm not generally focusing on them. I think there's a case maybe for like Bishop 4 player, just to take the Douglas. I think that can pay off, things like that. But for the most part, I'm not considering too much. I'm kind of considering them almost extensions of Maria Hill's hero kit as like options. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. They're almost like trait limited cards without actually being trait limited. They're almost like the Adam Warlock, um, mystic, spells, but sort of, almost even more limited in some ways.
Yeah,
So like, I think that the aspect cards are like, on first blush, I'm sort of like, a little underwhelming for this box. It's certainly not a next evolution, where it's sort of so many high value game changing aspect cards. that are useful that are useful for like every hero. But there are a lot of fun new ones, and actually even going through them, there were realizing how generally useful Grant Ward and Nick Fury Sr. and all those cards are. I really enjoy Slingshot Leo, Gemma, Practice Plan. There's a lot of really fun cards. The reprints, it felt like a lot of reprints and a lot of ones that people
Hmm.
don't really need.
Well,
But if you are a new player,
hmm.
they're really good. I mean, Under Surveillance allows you to play the game solo, functionally.
Yeah.
That's a great card, and Coulson's a really fun card, and so I don't think you have to mind. I don't mind the reprints too much. You got to have some reprints, and so kind of roll with it. So
Yeah, there are two things I immediately want to say. One, we forgot about one basic card, but it's so forgettable. I think that's why we forgot about it, and that's front
I
organization.
yeah, I noticed you forgot it, and I was like, I'm just gonna pass over it because it's so
Yeah,
forgettable.
yeah. This card just blocks
Yeah,
you discarding something when an encounter card would make you do it. I can
yeah,
see why they put it in Maria, but I feel like this is almost like a training wheels card. Like you should try and
right.
have something cheap so you don't lose your giant 6 cards. But like beyond that, I don't really use this card. I'm going to be honest with you. Maybe like it's a one-time use if I needed like a filler card for Maria or someone, or if I was teching against a certain encounter set, mod set that targeted the like expensive cards because this could block the effect. But generally,
Yep,
not a card I'm
100%.
thinking about ever. um,
I've got a great use case for it. Great use case, which is to use it as a proxy for assess the situation.
Perfect. There
So
you go.
it's the fact that it's zero cost, it has mental resource, and so
That would be a
I'm
thematic
always
card
looking.
for this box. I feel like assessing the
It would be,
situation. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean that would have been a really fun card to have instead of that. So that's okay. That's okay. But yeah, so not the most exciting aspect cards, but truly I think going through them made me appreciate so many more of them even better. So that's
the
great.
the only point I have to the only thing I have to point out here, which is a little bit of an ugly truth, something I kind of wish I didn't have to, but a lot of the stuff in this box with Shield combos with a lot of the stuff from the Sinister Motives box with just Shield,
Yeah.
and that is kind of out of print, kind of hard to obtain. So that is a little bit unfortunate. It probably should be if you don't have it, be something you are aware of.
Yep, exactly.
But I do
I
think
mean,
this box stands alone without it, but it is a shame.
yes, it is a shame. It does stand alone, but it is a shame. And maybe it's not a shame for forever. I don't know how the whole current thing goes, but I know they've talked about
No.
evergreen products. Who knows? Who knows? But if there was going to be a random evergreen product that they kept reprinting, it would be Sinister Motives. Like for me, like my money would 100% be on that. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know the way that their sales go, but like I just feel like there's such a great box. It's not connected to any trilogy or anything. It's what's evergreen if not Web Warriors and Shield. Like
Yeah.
those are just fun things that I think anyone would be like, yeah, I want to pick that up. And other packs and stuff could reference back to. And like you said, it's kind of, I mean, this would like to have that, and Silk coming out in a
Oh
minute, or you
yeah.
you just got I can't imagine having Silk and not having Sinister Motives. So yeah, I don't, yeah, not to be a downer, but yeah, that would be definitely just be aware of that dynamic.
And that about brings us to the end of the video. Really huge fans of Nick Fury. Maria Hill can be fun, but there are some flaws I don't think she's going to click with everyone. And the aspect cards, some are just really, really good, some are quite niche, and then there are the reprints, so a bit of a mixed bag here. My overall thoughts would be, if you generally buy most of Marvel Champions, you're still just going to get a lot of value out of this box and enjoy it. If you don't have many boxes yet, this probably isn't the first box I'm going to recommend in terms of heroes and aspect cards, although the basic allies are going to help you out quite significantly. On the flip side, some of those cards just aren't going to be super useful to you right now compared to other expansions and things out there. In the next video, you'll be able to hear us talk about the villains, the modular sets, the campaign in quite some detail, so hopefully you look forward to that. Want to say a big thank you again to Andy N for coming on the channel. And I realized after recording, which is where I'm speaking from now, we forgot to shout out Andy N about where he's from, what he does, and he's got this really cool custom content, Mr. Negative Scenario for Marvel Champions. You can find out more about it on his channel. He's got some gameplay stuff. And if you're ever interested in making custom content, he's got this really good video guide here. So the link to his channel will be in the description. Very cool guy in the community. Big thanks for coming on again. And we'll see you in the next part where we discuss the villains.